I want to tell you personally, it has helped me in my own life. I chose the image of a rower because you're out there in a boat. You don't control anything around you. The wind and the waves, you don't control that. But what is inside that boat, your hands on the oars and what your body is doing, you absolutely control. And there's a school of thought, and it's very common today, that says this isn't true. That human beings don't have very much responsibility for themselves. So, one example, I mean it's kind of an old example, but I think it speaks to this. In the 1920s, there was a very famous case called the Leopold and Loeb trial. Has anybody heard of that? Leopold and Loeb, they were two young men from the north side of Chicago who committed murder. They killed someone. And their lawyer argued that they were conditioned by their biology, that somehow they were not responsible for their actions. So there is an idea, there's a sort of increasing awareness today, the more we learn about psychology, the more we learn about neurology, how the brain works, the more we learn about society and its impact on people. There's a school of thought that says we as individuals, we can blame a lot of things on externals, right? I can blame my body chemistry for the weight I gained. It's not my fault, so I'm going to run to the doctor and I'm going to find a pill that's going to get rid of that. Or I can blame the way I was raised for my failure to do well in school, right? I was badly raised, that's why I'm not doing well in school. So there's a tendency in our culture to kind of attribute the individual's choices to factors that are beyond our control. And there's something to be said for that. But Stoicism ultimately rejects that notion. You always have a choice. If you're smoking, you're the one choosing to pick up that cigarette. If you're gambling, you're the one choosing to go to the casino. You can't blame it on an addiction. So it's a very tough-minded, very harsh philosophy. But ultimately, that's something that you as an individual are going to have to make a decision about. What do you think? Do you think that the soul really is the center of consciousness and freedom, that's spiritual and always responsible? Or do you think that in many ways we are conditioned by our bodies, our biology, our society, the way we were raised? So it's a very important philosophical question. So, in contrast to Epicureans, the goal of Stoicism was apatheia. Pathe means suffering, but in the sense of being affected by things. A is a negative, so it means non-suffering, not being affected by emotions. So the whole idea of grief, when you lose someone and you grieve, a Stoic would try not to be affected by that. It's very cold in a way. Sort of, the goal is not to be affected by emotions. So Marcus Aurelius writes somewhere, you always want to be the same, even if there's the death of a child. He must have lost one of his children. He didn't want to be affected by that. So the goal is not to be affected by strong emotions. In a way, it's a very cold philosophy. Today, people sometimes use the word stoic to describe someone who seems emotionless. Another Stoic principle is the logos. It means word or reason. And you'll see it throughout the reading. But Marcus Aurelius used it to describe what he thought of as the governing order of the universe. There's some type of guiding providence that assigns to each person their place. People today would say, there's a reason for everything. You heard that expression? That's a Stoic idea. So something bad happens, they might say, well, there's a reason for everything. There's a reason for everything. That's very Stoic. And reason here has that sense. So that there's some guiding, ordering mind that's kind of governing the course of things in the universe. And there's a reason why everything happens, and we need to just accept it. There's a strong sense of acceptance in Stoicism. One of the things that, this is just me, personally, bothers me about it, is that the Stoics would not have a sense of outrage at injustice. I do. Social justice is important to me. I feel outraged at bad things going on in society, and I want to change them. The Stoic approach is more like just, you've got to accept it. There's a reason for everything. You've got to accept what's happening around you. So you're like the stone in an aqueduct, or you're like a rower in an 8. You've got to match with that crew. You're part of something bigger than yourself, and you need to accept it. But it leads to a very strong ethic of duty and honor and responsibility. So you notice in the opening film, when the lieutenant says to Marcus Aurelius they need to move the catapults forward or back or something, like these big machines that are going to lob stuff at the enemy. Move them forward to protect the cavalry, the mounted soldiers who are going to charge. We don't want to hit our own people. Maximus says, no, the risk is acceptable. So it's the idea that each of us as an individual doesn't really matter much.
We just have a role.
We have a role to play, whether it's in the army or in society or in the world. And you'll see that woven throughout the reading. So a strong sense of duty, even self-sacrifice and honor. Like some of you wrote about loyalty, you wrote about friendship. For a Stoic, loyalty would be important, but it would never trump duty. It would never trump honor. So if there's a conflict between your loyalty and your duty, you would have to choose duty. One of my philosophy students years ago, he was a criminal justice major, and in his final oral exam, he came up with a kind of a case study. He says, let's say I'm a cop, and I and my partner go to the scene of a store that has been broken into. There's nobody else around and no security cameras. My partner wants to loot the store. Hey, we're cops. We can go in there and take a few things. Nobody's going to know, right? Loyalty would say, I go with him. And in fact, that's what that student concluded. He said that's what you should ethically do. Go ahead and loot the store with his partner. Because that bond of loyalty between partners, police officers, is so important. But a Stoic wouldn't say that duty first. Duty will trump loyalty. So some of you may find yourself disagreeing with Stoicism because of that. You would sacrifice a friendship for the sake of duty. And then the concept of nature and living according to nature. Nature has a similar sense to logos. It's the universe and the fact that we're part of it. So you'll see that coming back. But Marcus Aurelius shows glimmers in his writing of appreciation for the natural world. So the beauty of a plant or a tree, or a loaf of bread that's baking, or the jaw of an animal, he writes about this. He's seeing beauty in the natural world. And I kind of saw that in the opening scene, where he was looking at this little bird. The first thing he was doing was retreating into himself. He was thinking within himself about a place and people he loved and creating that sense of tranquility within. That's very Stoic. Thinking about his family. He's about to go into battle and he just closes his eyes and calms himself down. But the second thing he was doing was observing the natural world. Little bird on a branch, and how beautiful that is. And so this notion of nature is also important in Stoicism. Let me just give you a little bit of background on who he was, and then we'll wrap it up. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, I think was his full name. His parents died when he was young, but he was part of an aristocratic family in Rome. And so he was adopted by the Emperor Antoninus Pius, whom he regarded as a wise ruler. So he was raised with the best education. He gives a lot of credit to his teachers and the people around him for raising him. He studied Epicurus, so that original Stoic philosopher. He studied those works and practiced a Stoic lifestyle. He became emperor upon the death of Antoninus Pius, although I think he had to fight a couple of battles to gain that position. In 161, and I think he reigned for close to 20 years. He's regarded as one of Rome's wisest rulers. Historians talk about the so-called golden age of the Antonines, these wise emperors who did their best to rule Rome, the city of Rome, and the empire itself wisely. So he was often out on military campaigns, like what we saw in the clip. And during these times, he wrote his meditations in a journal. He actually wrote in Greek. So you're reading something that's been translated from Greek. It was common for educated Romans to learn that language. He died on campaign in 180. The people who made the film Gladiator speculate that he was assassinated. One of the great mysteries of history is how could he have allowed his son Commodus, who was an awful leader, terrible, to become emperor after him. And so you sort of see a speculation in that film about how that could have happened. But again, he was honored as one of Rome's wisest rulers, and you're going to be reading his journal entries. So again, with the reading, you don't have to read the whole thing, and don't expect you to. If you wish.
There's like 5 books that you gave us.
Yeah, and I was going through the reading, gosh, which one should I choose? And there's so much good stuff in all of them, I said, I'm just going to give them all. So pick what you want to read. This would be a great opportunity for you to use this reading to become more philosophical in your lifestyle, in the sense of trying to look at this every day. You may do extra posts for extra credit as long as they are on separate days. Because again, the goal of the Blackboard post, hang on David, my camera's still rolling. The goal of the Blackboard post is for you to make mindful reading a regular part of your lifestyle. So keep it by your bed, that's what I do. Pick it up before you fall asleep, or pick it up when you wake up in the morning, read a little bit. Think about it as you go throughout your day. If you can do your post from a phone, that's fantastic, because it's right there with you. So I would invite you to, the forum is up, start using it now. And let's really sink ourselves into this reading and see what we can get out of it. Questions? Go. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
You too. You okay?